You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack podcast, Thunderquack Monthly. After the fact, I don't know, Joe. I don't know. I'm your host, Michael Cohen. With me, as always, the illustrious Joe Hogan.
Hey man, yeah, I don't know. Well, what are we? Who are we?
Who are we? What is this? I went on the Discord and I asked, should we this new monthly Thunderquack show, should we call it the Thunderquack podcast? Should we keep calling it After the Fact, which is a choice that we made after we recorded the last episode, which is highly coincidental and humorous to me that after the fact we made the choice to call it After the Fact. Or should we come up with something completely new? And and the response was completely inconclusive.
Perfect.
So yeah, we are at this juncture where we got to call the podcast something. But you know what? This is the thing. I am inclined, and Dan / Wanna Pineapple on our Discord made the point. I like Thunderquack partly because it makes sense to take the name since it's sort of similar to the previous iteration. And I think that's why, like, initially I had sort of thought to just call it Thunderquack Monthly, right? But honestly, I think we just keep calling it the Thunderquack Podcast. What is it? Like, does it need a fancy name? I don't know. What do you think? How are you feeling about it?
I'm sure that if there was a clever name that we heard that we really liked, we would go with it, but we haven't, so who cares? It's just
Yeah.
let's keep it simple, stupid.
I think actually that is probably the best course of action, and as such, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the reason why I was reluctant in the beginning to just call it the Thunderquack Podcast, because it means nothing. It is just, I mean, like, the Thunderquack is Darkwing Duck's plane. And that's why I just like Darkwing Duck a lot, and that's why I called it Thunderquack. Also, thunderquack.com was available. That was the main motivating factor. It was that I was able to get the URL, so that's what I did. But the Thunderquack podcast was Amanda and I for a long time, and so I don't know. Like, I felt a little bit like, oh, can we just take that? But like, Amanda's not coming back to podcasting. Like, she's pretty done with it. Like, she'll do like a guest appearance every now and then on something like Perfect 10. But you know what? I think we're just gonna call it the Thunderquack Podcast because that just gives us the opportunity to do whatever the hell we want. So
I would argue that unless Amanda felt otherwise, I think it would be fitting to continue it on in her honor.
Yeah, I don't think she cares. I don't. As a matter of fact,
solved.
Yeah, for anybody who's been listening since like back in the day, I guarantee she doesn't care, and I think that you guys know that I know Amanda pretty well, that I don't even have to check. So at this point, you know what? Here's the thing. Amanda was over for like sort of our pre-Christmas, because she goes back to the Okanagan for Christmas, so she was here to hang out with the girls and give them their Christmas presents and whatnot, and they give her a Christmas present and all that. And at the end of that evening, Crystal and I asked her if she was okay with, after all, if all of our family is dead, if there's nobody left and we die, and the girls need a guardian, if Amanda would be their guardian. And so, like, that is how close my friendship with Amanda is. I don't
That's
need
a
to.
heavy conversation.
Oh, dude. and the two of them were just like waterworks, and I was like, Amanda, we're not dying right now. But yeah, I think everybody was just relieved and happy to have that sort of figured out. But yeah, that's what, like, Amanda is the girl's aunt. Like
Mm.
Amanda's one of my oldest friends. Like I don't have to check with her with a lot of things. I know what she's gonna say. As a matter of fact, I think Amanda would tell you that I usually know how she's gonna react to things like faster than she does. Uh, so yeah, so I think she'll be all right. She won't care. She's not sentimental in that way, I don't think. So yeah, we're the Thunderquack podcast. That's what we are.
All right.
It's just going to be the Thunderquack podcast from now on.
Said with
So,
certainty now.
cool. Well, let's get into so we're gonna have a big topic. We're gonna talk about the Game Awards. We're gonna talk about sort of you and I, our game of the year conversation for video games. But before we do that, I actually just wanted to talk really quickly about something really cool that happened over the course of the last 2 weekends in the box office, which is that the first 2 weeks of December, the number one movie was a Japanese produced feature film. So the first
Rad.
week was Godzilla -1, which is phenomenal. Oh my god, is it an amazing movie? It is one of the best movies that I've seen in a long time. It is my pick for like movie of the year. It was incredible, and very little of that review has anything to do with the fact that Godzilla is in it, which says a lot because I am a huge Godzilla fan, pun intended, I guess. But this movie is a great movie regardless of the fact that it happens to be about a giant dinosaur monster destroying Tokyo. There's an incredible human story at the heart of it that that I think is actually like, I think in the year 2023 is hugely important. And I think both for Japan as well as for North America, for the Western world, I think it's a story that's super important to be told about post-war Japan, post World War II Japan, and a perspective that I would say the vast majority of North Americans are completely ignorant to. So the fact that they wrap that in the delicious candy coating of a giant monster stomping on Tokyo, it's just it couldn't be better. This is what I live for, right? Is when genre storytelling can get to like a real human story, like something that actually matters, something that moves the needle culturally, but then deliver it to us with that spoonful of sugar that we love, which in this instance is Godzilla. But it's like when Star Wars does it, when the Marvel Cinematic Universe does it, when DC manages every once in a while to pull it off. Um, like I would say Birds of Prey is an example of that. Then even James Gunn's Suicide Squad, I would say, is an example of that, because there's a heart to that story. Um, I but yeah, I like, that's what I live for. So I am so glad that the movie is as good as it is. I am unbelievably like over the moon elated that so many people have gone to see this film in North America, in the Western market, but like the global box office is massive for a film like this, which is awesome. It's awesome for Godzilla. It's awesome for kaiju movies in general. It's so awesome for Japan. And I think it's a huge win. And not to be too hyperbolic, but I really feel like it's sort of a turning of the tide in the culture war that we're in at the moment, because there's been a lot of xenophobia, a lot of
Mm.
anti-Asian rhetoric around COVID, obviously, that happened, that has died down but has not gone away. And so to see something out of Japan dominate in this way is really really cool. And then it was followed up this past weekend with the latest Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli film, The Boy and the Heron, taking the number one spot, and Godzilla sitting in number two, sitting pretty in number two. Like the number one and number two movies in the first week of December, which is like it's holiday movie going season, right? This is usually the zone where we're looking for things like, I mean, like there's a Hunger Games movie in the theaters. There's,
Wait, what?
sometimes a Star Wars movie is a
Oh,
thing.
okay. In general, I was like, "There's a new Hunger Games movie."
No, there is a new Hunger Games movie that came out weeks ago. You
Wait,
don't know that?
what? No.
Yeah. A prequel.
Oh, all right.
Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes or something like that. I can't remember what the title is exactly,
Okay, sounds
but
like a
it's
Game of Thrones book title.
yeah, oh, it totally does. But yeah, it's like the prequel about President Snow, and about like, not, it's not like the first Hunger Games, but it's like it's his first involvement with the Hunger Games and how he changed the Hunger Games. I haven't seen it yet. I
Okay.
want to. It looks fantastic, and I've heard good things, um but it's probably one of those ones that I'll have to end up waiting for streaming, just because kids make it hard to go out to the movies. But yeah, like there's that. There's a Disney movie in the theaters right now. Like there's stuff to go see. And I two Japanese movies taking over the box office to me is like, it's so unexpected but so welcome. So I'm so excited for what this means for the future, because I think it's kind of proving a bit of box office viability for these types of things. And I saw Godzilla minus one in IMAX, which was like, wow. It was so good in IMAX. I hear that like the 4DX is also an incredible experience that's totally worthwhile. um but yeah, man, what's your familiarity with the Godzilla franchise? We never really talked about kaiju stuff.
I mean, I'm familiar-ish. I've seen all of the like the modern ones.
Yeah,
Godzilla's fun for me. I'm not like I don't have any merch or anything like that. Like I have
yeah.
no real I wouldn't say I'm part of the fandom, but like I enjoy those movies. But so my fiance Tina and I every Wednesday as our kind of like we're going to hang out and go on a date or do something that we want to do every single Wednesday. So tomorrow we have not decided yet, but we are actually either going to see Godzilla or Boy and the Heron.
Perfect. Yeah,
Because she is crazy about Studio Ghibli. I mean, I am too, but like she's a
yeah.
huge fan of that stuff. Um, and I mean, I really enjoy them too. And anytime those movies show up and the Alamo Draft House near us, like we always just go.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the only thing that kind of sucks though is Godzilla's not playing there, which is crazy because like they usually have everything playing there. So it's not playing in an IMAX on Staten Island, so we're probably not gonna go to Manhattan tomorrow if we do see it, but we are gonna go to a theater that we don't really love going to. Um, but I kind of want to see Godzilla more than I want to see Boy and the Heron, but
Hmm.
I don't really care. I would be happy seeing either one because they both look really cool. Um, but yeah, so I'm excited to see both. I plan on seeing both before they leave theaters.
Yeah.
I have no idea which one we're gonna
Which
see
one's gonna be
first.
first? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's awesome. I mean, it was not something that was really even on my radar. I mean, Godzilla minus
Mm.
one kind of came out of nowhere for me. And that's funny, the weekend that it premiered, the trailer drops for Godzilla. I guess it's Godzilla cross Kong. Like it's like it's not versus this time, right? Last time it was Godzilla versus Kong. This time it is a straight up Avengers team up between the two of them. Which, like, hell yeah. I love all of the modern American ones as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah, they're cool.
um
I don't know if you knew this, but a buddy of mine, Chris D, who is a Star Wars artist, which is
yeah.
how anyone who listens might know where they might know him from. He was actually a VFX artist on Godzilla King of Monsters, and he worked on many effect shots of like, you know, explosions and fires and particle
Yeah, yeah.
effects and all that stuff. And he did such a good job that they imported a lot of his systems and work that he did for Godzilla versus Kong. So even though
Nice.
technically he didn't work on that movie, his work is featured in both movies. So it's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. That's awesome.
Pretty neat.
He should get royalties for that VFX union.
I don't think he does, but
Nope, he should. I'm saying that I know he doesn't.
Mhm.
I'm saying that he should. I'm saying that
Well,
like if he created something and then they used it there, yeah, that's what this is. We're just making a case for a VFX union. That's
that
all.
would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait for more Godzilla stuff. I mean, like I have been a huge Godzilla fan since 1998, since the Matthew Broderick movie. Which is, listen, I acknowledge it's terrible. It's an
Yeah,
atrocious
it's
film,
fun though.
but I love the hell out of
Yeah, it's
it.
a fun movie.
I love the hell out of it. So
I love all those Roland Emmerich disaster
yeah,
movies. I don't
yeah,
care.
yeah,
Shameless.
exactly.
I mean, you know me. Independence Day is like one of my favorite
Yeah,
movies ever, but
yeah.
it's good stuff.
So
Real
yeah,
quick,
yeah.
without spoiling anything, because like I said, we are gonna see it very soon. Is this a kind of like standalone Godzilla movie? Is this a sequel? Is this a prequel? Is this like a new universe? Like what's
Yeah,
bare
it
bones
is.
Cliff Notes answer?
Yeah, it is. It is standalone.
All
So
right.
the
So
first
new lore
Godzilla,
altogether for this
yeah,
Godzilla. Okay.
yeah. The original Godzilla, I believe, is 1956.
Mm.
I think it's
I mean, I don't know.
1956.
I'm in acknowledgement,
Yeah.
not confirmation. I
um
have no idea.
and is contemporary to that time period, right? Like
Okay.
I think it's meant
Yeah.
to take place in that time period. This movie takes place, I mean, like the opening of the film is during World War II, and
Oh,
then the
cool.
rest of the film is is sort of in the years after World War II. So like we
Okay.
are like firmly in post-war Japan and dealing with the fallout, quite literally the fallout of Hiroshima and is it Nagasaki? I think it's Nagasaki.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and more importantly, just like this, like sort of the state of things, even in Tokyo, which was bombed pretty heavily, not the sprawling metropolis that it is now, but sort of like in there's a lot of the story is about the rebuilding, and then Godzilla comes in and just kind of ruins a lot of stuff,
Mm.
really changes a lot of things. So yeah, so it is, but it is a fresh start. It is a new
Cool. Okay.
Godzilla. There are, for even for old school Godzilla fans like myself, because like I started with the 1998 Roland Emmerich Matthew Broderick Godzilla, but
Hmm.
because of that got deep into it. And I've watched, I wouldn't say that I've watched all of the Godzilla films. That's ridiculous. There are like 60 of them.
Man.
But like sort of like the old school mainline ones I've watched, in particular like the original and stuff. Um and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, which is
Mm.
my favorite of the classics.
Oh, okay. So were you like
I
pumped when Mechagodzilla showed up and
Oh, dude,
like the new one?
like with the twist of Mechagodzilla being in Godzilla versus Kong. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. As it like started to build towards that, and I was like, no way, no way. And the fact that
Because
it's,
they kept that under wraps, right? I didn't really
yeah,
watch any of the trailers. I just
yeah,
watched the movie and was like, oh, okay, cool.
yeah, and it came out during COVID, right? So like
Hmm.
that was like December
Right,
2020.
yeah, it was like
So
straight to HBO. So I was
yeah,
like, oh,
it was a
cool.
home
Okay.
release sort of
Yeah.
thing. Um, yeah, and yeah, I mean, like I sat by myself that day. I took the day off work the day that it came out, so that I could watch it while everybody else was at school and daycare and whatever. Everybody was gone, and I had the house to myself. So I watched it, and like it got to the end, and I was like, we were getting up to that part where you start to, and then you start to figure out that like that they stole the idea from Pacific Rim of like it needs more than one brain in order to function, like sort of, and they're so they basically like used one of the heads of Ghidorah and all that, and it's just like, oh my god, like it just, I was like, this is perfect. This is so perfect. This is so incredible. The thing about the new movies, and the first one is, I think people have this attitude about it. I don't want to talk too much about this because this is what the next off the record is going to be about. Because I'm going to go movie by movie, but with my impressions of them. But I the thing that I love about it is so many people are like, oh, they got too silly. Is like that first one was serious. It was true to the original, and they should have stayed like that. And I'm like, I'm sitting over here going like, that's not how Godzilla works. Like
Yeah.
that was how Godzilla did. Like the trajectory that the Gareth Edwards 2014 Godzilla franchise, the MonsterVerse as it's dubbed, has taken is exactly the same as the trajectory of the original Godzilla
Yeah.
films, which is that the first one comes out, it's a very serious, very sci-fi social message type of story about what we're doing to the planet, right? And then it's a big success and everybody loves it and everybody says that it's a great movie, so they make a sequel, and the sequel ups the ante, and then it ups the ante, and then it ups the ante until the point that you get like Godzilla has a son and there's Monster Island where all the monsters that get defeated by Godzilla go to live, because like we don't want to get rid of them, we want to be able to use these suits again in another movie. And then aliens come down, and the aliens are the ones who build Mechagodzilla, right? Like that, like it just like it gets progressively more and more ridiculous, which is the way that this Godzilla Kong universe is going.
Mm.
um and like what they've said about this new one is that like there are entire, they call them titans, they don't call them kaijus, so there's entire titan battle sequences that have no humans in them whatsoever, right? Because there's like the whole underground
Mm.
world thing, and so there's going to be like these massive battles, I think, between Godzilla Kong and this the this Scar ape king guy and whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, like let's go, I'm so down for it. And then you put Monarch on top of that, which is the TV series, which I have to get caught up on before next week so that I can talk about that in totality. But um it's a really, really, really good time to be a Godzilla fan. Like, and the fact that Kong is like mixed in there, as well as like all of these other characters of like Rodan and Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla, all of this stuff. It's like, yeah, if you're a fan of this stuff, it's a really, really good time to be a fan. And there are kind of two camps, right? Because you've got the people who are like obnoxious purists. It's like every fandom, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's not as good as the original. It's like, go back and watch those
Yeah, I'll
movies.
watch
They're
the originals,
terrible.
man.
Like, but they're bad. Like they're bad movies. Like across the board, they're pretty bad movies, right? They are historically important films. Like Godzilla is a historically important film, and it is good for the time. But like the sequels are progressively worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point that like Godzilla's doing like flying kicks, and I mean, like there are gifs of Godzilla surfing. Like these are from feature films that were released in Japan, okay,
Mm.
that have been dubbed in North America. So um yeah, like the Godzilla, for people to be precious with the Godzilla franchise, to me is one of those things where it's like, then like this is the no true Scotsman type thing, but it's like you want to call yourself a true fan of Godzilla goes, oh, his spine's light up pink this time, buckle up. Like ticket sold. Kong's got a big robot hand or like gauntlet thing looking like Thanos. Yeah, I'm down. They're gonna fight a bunch of other uh Kongs underground where with the weird dinosaur monsters. Like, listen, there is nothing wrong with anything that I just said. It is all delicious popcorn flick fodder for me. So I am so down for this next movie. I and yeah, and then like Monarch is very serious. Like Monarch is very self serious. It's like the 2014 film, but it is also like a connective tissue between that and Kong Skull Island
Mm.
and the other stuff that's going on. Like so, um, like building out that universe, like like literally we have the best of all three worlds here, where we have like the serious modern Godzilla stuff We've got an incredible, beautiful new Japanese Godzilla movie, and we've also got these ridiculous popcorn blockbuster tentpole Godzilla movies. Like the only thing that's missing is a really really good animated series with Godzilla. There is a Kong Skull Island animated series that is kind of it's not really my jam. I couldn't get into it, but I it is part of the I don't know if it's canon, but it's kind of like Camp Cretaceous with the Jurassic movies, right? Where
Okay, sure.
it's like Camp Cretaceous is not important except the fact that like if you watch it you're like, oh, a lot of Dominion makes way more sense if you've watched all of Camp Cretaceous, because Camp Cretaceous actually like did a lot of the world building that
Oh, okay.
Dominion doesn't bother to get into. it's
Hmm.
it's it's pretty amazing actually. And along those lines, just a quick segue, there's a new Jurassic series coming out that is a sequel to Camp Cretaceous with some of those characters coming back. So if you were a fan of Camp Cretaceous, as we are in this household, that's something to be excited about as well. Because that show was actually, I mean, Camp Cretaceous was better than any of the new movies, the new Jurassic movies. Um, I'll only give the newer movies a pass because we get Camp Cretaceous as a result. Um, and it's totally worth it for that fact because it's a fantastic show about kids stuck on Isla Nublar, post Jurassic World. It's so good. Camp Cretaceous is awesome. Yeah, I think that's all the news that I've got right now that I wanted to talk about.
All right.
Do you have any follow up on anything that I just said?
I got nothing to add.
Nothing.
I have
Yeah,
not watched any of that stuff, so.
yeah, yeah. I figured. Cool. Let's get into a topic that you can
All
contribute
right.
to, which is the Game Awards were last week, and uh, let's start off with this. Stop calling them the Game Awards.
Yeah. That'd be a good start.
If you won't let the people responsible for these masterpieces have more than 45 seconds to thank all of the people involved in bringing these things to fruition, then what are we doing? Like, what are we wasting our time for? I know that most people probably don't care about the awards show components of it, but for me, I absolutely care more about the awards show component than I do about the trailers. The trailers you can just drop online at any point, right? Like they don't need to be
Mm.
I part of a big show, in my opinion. But like, and like I think that it's fun to do it that way, but not at the expense of this opportunity that these people who are like previously like behind the scenes type folks, right, for them to get up and talk. I mean, like several of the major awards were given out like off screen, like at a different point in
Yeah.
time. Some of them were given away during the pre-show. Like
Yeah.
I just
In shotgun succession.
yeah, and to me it's like I don't know. Like if we want to do like a Summer Games Fest winter showcase, like that, cool, awesome, like let's do that, right? That's just trailers and stuff like that. That's totally fine. Here's all the stuff that's coming in the next year. It's the holiday season. Let's get hyped about everything that's coming out in March, because that's a big window now for game releases. There's like sort of that February, March, April window. And then Games Fest in the summer. Like we should have Summer Game Fest and we should have Winter Games Fest, and then we should have the Game Awards. Like it should be three separate things. And the Game Awards should really just have like four or five massive announcements to keep people watching the show, right? But I think that it should be focused. If I'm going to sit there for 3 hours, um I want to hear from these professionals in the industry, and especially on the heels of a year where a lot of people have been treated very disrespectfully by these studios. with layoffs and just sort of the general state of the industry with crunch and all of that sort of thing. I'm like, I just don't think it was a good look. I don't think it was a good look
Mm.
to be like, okay, you guys won game of the year. Now shut up, go away. Right? Like, we have a trailer to show you for something. Like, that's not, I don't know. I don't know if the Academy Awards blazed through like the visual effects awards so that they could show you a trailer for the next Star Wars. I think that we'd all, as much as we wanted trailer for the next Star Wars, I think we'd all be really, really put off by it. I think we'd be like, that was super disrespectful. Why would they do that? So I don't know why the games. It felt like we were finally getting to a place where video games were being acknowledged in the same way that we would acknowledge film and television with something like the Golden Globes or the Academy Awards, and the TGAs are starting to get there. And then I feel like this is just a massive step backwards. Um, yeah, that's my feeling on it. What about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. While you were talking about this, I was trying to find a thread that I saw on Reddit a few days ago that I meant to save and I didn't. Somebody actually did the math on how much time was awards, how much time was trailers, and how much time was like celebrity presenters just like talking about whatever. And the amount of like, I don't want to give incorrect numbers, but like the amount of time for trailers was overwhelmingly more than
Yeah.
actually letting people have a thank you speech. Um, really crazy, really crazy. Also, I don't know if you saw the weird little falling out that independent devs at EA had over the Call of Duty joke that Christopher Judge made. Are you familiar
Oh
with that?
no, no.
Yeah, they took it really personally that Christopher Judge made a joke. So basically, Christopher Judge last year gave a 9-minute long acceptance speech, which was great. He deserved a platform, and it was I think like a good speech, but a lot of people feel like it went on too long. And
Mhm.
this year, he opened up uh basically poking fun at himself. Like as soon as he started talking, he was asked to present best performance to, this year's winner. And as soon as he started talking, they started playing the music to signal like, hey, wrap it up, get out of here.
Yeah.
And like it was funny. It was a funny gag. Like it was, oh, okay, he's got this, he's poking fun of himself. And then his next joke after that was, fun fact, uh my speech last year was actually uh longer than this year's Call of Duty campaign. And it got a laugh, but like at the same time, like there's two parts to that joke, right? Like, yes, you're making fun of Call of Duty, but he's still making fun of himself for having a
Yeah.
speech that's too long. Dude, there was like 3 or 4 Call of Duty devs this year that immediately went to Twitter and were like, "Oh, how can you do this? A colleague of ours when we're supposed to be elevating ourselves." And then like one person was saying like, "Oh, you know, eh, eh, it's easy to say, I bet our game has more engagement than your game, than God of War,
Mhm.
once people are finished playing God of War." And it was just like all these like really reactionary,
Yeah.
just passive aggressive butthurt comments from these people. And it was just like, if you're so offended that your campaign is being called short, your campaign is probably short.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, have a sense of humor. Give me a break.
I mean, it is short because I think that I've heard that you can beat it in like 2.5 to 4 hours. Like that. That's
Oh
the
man.
that like it's not much of a campaign. So listen,
But like
here's
those are
the thing.
multiplayer games. Who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah, they wouldn't be reacting that way if they weren't self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
That's to me, like, sort of, when you do that, when you have that sort of a reaction, you're saying more about yourself than you are about uh than you are about the person who made the joke, right? Because
Yeah.
I do, it was a good joke. It's good. That's good comedy, right? Um, I and it's also like, listen, like your Call of Duty, relax. You sold millions of copies.
Yeah.
Like nobody's now like, well, cancel my pre-order. First of all, the game's already out. Like the big numbers are done already, right? Like like this is the state of the gaming industry right now, where it's like first week sales are the vast majority of sales for most games, particularly AAA, right? So like that's why you see like never pay full price for an Ubisoft game. We've talked
Mm.
about this, I think, where it's like because they are going to slash that thing 2 weeks after it's out. Because everybody who was gonna buy it at full price pre-ordered it and they bought it on week 1.
Yeah.
Like that, like they did it. Everybody else is a straggler, right? We talked about this a little bit on the last episode of Force Perspectives, that idea of like the early adopter thing, right? So it's like the same rules apply here, where it's like that those early adopters are 5%. Like
Mm.
it is not a big chunk. The majority of people that are going to buy your product are going to buy it, wait until it's on discount. But like those big numbers for video games, they like the because we're talking about revenue, right? Like the big numbers happen in the first 2 weeks, right? And then everything else after that is like get people like on the long tail of it. In order to do that, you got to slash prices. You got to put stuff on sale if that's your focus, right? Um, and then you'll see indie games will have sort of the opposite sort of thing, where like they'll come out, nobody knows what it is, but then like 5 people with platforms will say this game is great, go buy it. And then you'll see a spike, right? But
Mm.
in the middle, and then it'll trail off again. But like that is the nature of game sales, is that like by the time that Christopher Judge is making that joke, like it's done. Call of Duty is done for the year, and that's why like this is why Call of Duty and I mean it used to be what was the other one, Battlefield used
Yeah.
to be, and Assassin's Creed and stuff like that. That's why they're annual franchises, right? It was because like like these companies are chasing that revenue spike. um and a lot of other companies have learned over the years, oh, if you have games as service type stuff, microtransactions, whatever, and you keep people in there over the long tail, like then you have a more steady revenue stream. But yeah, like that you're totally right, it's just like reactionary, right?
Yeah.
This idea of like how dare you make fun of our game at the Game Awards. Yeah, Call of Duty, whatever.
Call of Duty
Right.
already has the reputation it has, whether or not Christopher Judge makes one
Oh
passing
yeah,
cheeky comment at the Game Awards. Like, give
yeah,
me a break.
yeah, no, yeah, and like those of us who are laughing at that joke the hardest, we're not buying Call of Duty anyways.
Right. We already you didn't he didn't change any hearts and minds that day.
No, 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 no. He didn't. He didn't even move the needle. It's yeah. As a matter of fact, I would say that their reaction probably did more to sour
Yep.
people on the Call of Duty franchise
I agree.
than anything that Christopher Judge did. Because I think if anything, like if Christopher Judge punches up at Call of Duty in that way, the biggest franchise in gaming, right? I think that some people will go, oh yeah, Call of Duty's out, I should try that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what's going to happen off of that. But then you come off and you get all petulant about it. I think that people are going to go, well, then fine, I'm not even going to play your 2.5 hour
Yeah.
campaign, right? Like if this
I,
is how you
I
guys are going to act, I'll go play God of War again.
I
Uh,
think the reaction, if you were even going to react to it, I mean,
yeah,
honestly, probably the smartest reaction was just to ignore it. But if you were going to react to it, I think the best way to have done it was, ah, ha, ha, you got us. Anyway, hey, here's some free DLC. Here's 10 points, a double XP weekend for every. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, just acknowledge it, roll with it, and hey, by the way, here's the thing. Like, take
yeah.
that press and make a good press.
It is one of those things. Like it depends on who's doing the talking, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
high up in that um company, in that structure, that and you're saying this stuff, then like that's all, like you have messed up. If you're just like one of like the devs and you're just on
Yeah.
Reddit yelling at people, it's like, well, like EA can't control that.
Yeah.
um is it EA? Call of Duty is EA?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Like EA should have like made lemonade out of that lemon.
Mm.
Like absolutely, because they had the opportunity. Like that was a that it is actually like a textbook case for a good PR spin. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah,
absolutely.
you guys got us, but you know what? Like that's not what we're here for. We're here for multiplayer. So like double XP weekend,
Yeah,
it's on the house sort of thing, right? Like, oh,
yeah,
here
absolutely.
everybody have this God of War inspired skin so that you can all shoot Christopher Judge, right? Like do something funny, like jab back in
Yeah,
that fun way, not get upset, right? But
yeah,
anyways, let's talk about some of the winners.
yeah. Cool.
Um so let's start with the most important one. I think this is what's on everybody's waiting for us to talk about. Esports player of the year. Going to Faker. No, listen, I get esports as a whole thing. I don't know how many people listening to this are in the esports ecosystem. I do not think we have a lot of crossover. I no, there's a bunch of these awards where I'm like, yeah, it's okay that you skip those, but it's also not
Okay,
like,
so let me ask you, yeah,
yeah,
because that's kind of what I wanted to touch on. So we agree, obviously, that the devs and composers and all of these people who poured their blood, sweat, and tears into these games, we agree that they deserve a voice. They should have their moment in the spotlight to
yeah,
give their thanks and show their appreciation and a lot of times humility towards being part of this kind of elite group of people who put out these legendary games essentially.
yeah,
But then you have these awards that are esports coach and stuff
yeah.
and influencer of the, like, I don't want to say do those matter as much. Do you feel like those are even, because me personally, I feel like there could be better award categories than there are. Like, there are plenty that make sense, but I also think that there's a few lacking. Like, I wish there was, you know, um, maybe like a remake category, so there weren't like like Resident Evil 4, Super Mario RPG. There were like how many remakes this year? Like
Yeah.
a remake category. Like put the spotlight on some games that wouldn't really have a chance versus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wish there was
Yeah.
more
In
of that,
yeah,
more diversity in the categories and less. Do you okay. I know I'm kind of like going in
yeah.
circles here. Do you feel like stuff like esports should be acknowledged at this type of event, or do you feel like this is the game creators, not just content creators event?
I think that esports and influencers should be a part of presenting at the show,
Okay.
right? As part of the culture. Because the purpose of having those awards in the show is to bring in that audience. I think
Hmm.
you do a better job bringing in that audience by giving those people a platform.
Okay.
So bringing those influencers in I mean, Keeley hosts every year. I I get that it's his thing. I also feel like Keeley should come out, do a monologue at the beginning or something like that, and then there should be like more presenters,
Yeah, like
right?
E3. E3, part of
Yeah,
the fun of E3 is you never know who's gonna like show up, and you know what I mean. Like other than these his celebrity best friends, like we know Kojima's gonna be there every single
yeah,
year talking
yeah.
about whatever the hell he's game that's weird for the sake of being weird. Um,
Yeah. But yeah, I think those esports and influencers should be part of that. I think like esports player and esports coach, like I do think that they deserve awards shows, right?
mhm,
I think that they deserve their own awards for those things that are on the same level as the TGAs. But I think that it's such a different culture than those of us who are just playing games versus those of
right.
us who are like spectating in
Mhm,
competitive gaming. And then I think beyond that, it's like what does that mean? Like esports player of the year, right? Because it's
how do you measure that?
like okay, so like a Street Fighter 6 player versus a Valorant player versus a StarCraft 2 player, right? Like
And
these
then a
are
Smash
wildly
tournament
different
player, yeah,
disciplines, right?
yeah.
So esports to me should have its own awards show. It should have its own night. and it probably does. I'll bet if we looked into it, there's probably something that exists for that audience. But and that because those people deserve to be recognized. It is a sport. Like it is like these people are legit like the best of the best. Their brains and bodies are connected in a way that you and I as lifelong gamers could never achieve. Right. So there is an excellence to that whole aspect, but like, is it, does it, should it be the same night that we are talking about the people who make the games? I don't think so. I think that those are
Yeah.
two separate things, but they should still be involved. They should still be part of the night. But I
Yeah, I'm
really
not
feel
trying to
like,
gatekeep anybody from it or
yeah,
anything like that.
I feel like Keeley needs to pass the ball a little bit more and not,
Yeah.
and because it is a little bit like this, and Summer Games Fest are like the Jeff Keeley shows, and it's like,
Yeah.
listen, I like Jeff Keeley. I think that what he's done for the industry has been awesome. I think that he's a massive supporter of games and a huge um, advocate for recognizing this stuff. I think that's great. I don't think he's the best host.
Yeah.
I think he's
Yeah.
fine. I think he does a competent job. I'll tell you, I think Greg Miller would do a hell of a better job hosting a
Oh,
show,
that'd be awesome.
right? Like, because I am a massive Greg Miller fanboy, so like, you know, but like I would rather see him and Jessica
Yeah.
Chobot hosting
I
the Game
like
Awards.
Max Scoville too. He's good.
Yeah, Max Scoville is also awesome, right? Like there are other personalities in the industry that I think would do a much better job hosting an awards show than than Jeff Keighley.
I really liked Adam Sessler, but I don't know what's going on. I just heard he kind of went off the deep end
Yeah,
recently. I don't really know anything about it. I think it had to do with all the G4 stuff.
yeah, that's
Um,
a whole other thing, right? But yeah, I think there's a rather than having like these like three random celebrities come out
yeah.
because they've got games to pitch you.
I, I was
Um,
complaining to you the entire
yeah,
time we were watching. Every time the next celebrity came out, like, oh, here we go, the same plastic speech. Like, oh, I was really impressed by this game. No, you weren't. They came to you with a lot of money, and you said yes. And now
yeah,
you're contractually obligated to be on the stage to talk to me about this game. So let's just forget the fake passion behind this and move on with
yeah.
it.
There's this thing where they have to like prove their cred, right? Like it's
Yeah,
like, oh no, I'm a gamer since back in the day. I love Mario's.
Pong
And
was
it's like,
great. Okay.
yeah, yeah, no. I'm like, yeah, so I less of that stuff, more of the actual awards, more of the actual
Yeah.
devs, I think would be really great. But yeah,
And I love like trail like E3 was my Christmas. Is I would take off from work for E3. I
for sure.
love like, oh man, we're gonna get like 2, 3, 4 hours of trailers today. I'm excited. I will stop what I'm doing. I'll watch it live. I love that stuff. But it's just weird to me that for the Game Awards, it's just trailers featuring some awards.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, so let's get back into the awards themselves. So I've got this list that's just from Google. I'm just gonna go from the bottom, and we'll end with game of the year. And then you and I'll talk about what our game of the year is.
Cool.
Um, what our games of the year are. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. We didn't really prep before this. We just kind of had a
Well,
short conversation,
well,
but that's
I
okay.
have a spreadsheet
Oh,
that
do you? Okay.
basically catalogs every single game that I've beaten over the last like 10 years. Like
Okay.
as I beat them, I put that on. It's from my
Yeah.
backlog. So and I score them. So I'm just gonna look at my top scored ones for the year and be like, yeah, okay, it'll be this one.
Yeah.
So I'm
Joe doesn't have
pseudo
kids.
prepared. I sure
Uh,
don't.
my
Sure don't. Sure
spreadsheet
don't.
about video games. Cool. I I had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning today to get ready to take the girls to the dentist at 8 a.m.
Mm.
I that's that's I don't have time for spreadsheets. Okay, let's start. Action adventure. Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Not a big surprise. Not a big surprise. Absolutely deserve that one. Um, yeah, we'll talk about Zelda at the end of this, I'm sure. Games for Impact, a game called Chia one, which is a really cool game that people should check out. But yeah, that Games for Impact, that's a cool award, and I think it deserves a little bit more fanfare than what it got. Um, Action game went to Armored Core 6, which kind of like was announced and then came out, and then like I guess it was good because here it's winning action game of the year, but I really haven't heard anybody talk about this game very
Yeah.
much. Role playing game obviously went to Baldur's Gate 3. We're gonna see a pretty big sweep from Baldur's Gate 3 across this. Art direction went to Alan Wake 2. This was one where I was actually a little bit surprised that this went to Alan Wake 2 because I feel like Alan Wake 2, from what I've seen, looks a lot like a survival horror game. It doesn't look
Yeah.
like it's doing
Very
anything particularly
dark.
interesting.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen this gone to Hi-Fi Rush, which brought back an aesthetic that I think we're going to see a lot of in the next little bit with the cell shaded anime stuff.
Mhm.
With the announcement of that new Jet Set Radio, we had um, Bomb Rush Funk guys or something. I can't remember what the name of the game is, but there's like a Jet Set inspired game that Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. I think that's what the game's called.
Sure.
I might just be making that up, but we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of that stuff, and I think that I think Hi-Fi Rush came out of nowhere and was like, holy crap, look at this game. So I don't know. I personally, that would have been my pick. Family game went to Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Sure. I actually think that like I don't know when the cutoff was for the nominations. But the Bluey video game came out this year, and if you're gonna ask me what the best family game of 2023 is, that's what I would have put. It wasn't even nominated, so I imagine that it didn't make it into the cutoff. Studio/game direction went to Remedy for Alan Wake 2. And then this is in here twice. Epic Games for Alan Wake 2 as well. The studio/game direction. I don't know why that's in there twice. Esports game went to Valorant. Sure. Indie game went to Sea of Stars. I think you and I are both in agreement on that one.
Yeah.
Sea of Stars is an incredible game, an incredible triumph. So yeah, that one makes total sense. I already made the joke about esports player. Anticipated game for next year's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, you're not going to get an argument from me. I think that that's pretty unanimous across the industry. Narrative went to Alan Wake 2. That makes sense to me because that is all that Alan Wake is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like there is gameplay and I'm sure that it's fun to play. But when people talk about Alan Wake, what they're talking about is narrative.
Yeah.
And it is literally a narrative about narrative. So, yeah, I'll give it to that. Multiplayer game went to Baldur's Gate 3. This one, I'm going to go ahead and say is controversial for me because all I heard about the multiplayer for Baldur's Gate 3 is how much it pissed people off. Because when the game launched, if you started a multiplayer game with your friends, it treats it like a D&D campaign. And it's like, well, if you want to play this, your friends also have to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
So like you start a multiplayer game with 2 other people. Now every time you go to play, which I guess is true to the experience of D&D, which is like, well, we started strong, we went 3 weeks in a row, and now no one's schedule is working out. So
Right.
I guess we just abandoned this campaign. I don't know. Like all I heard was people complaining about the multiplayer, whereas I would say that games like Fortnite and Destiny are doing a better job of being a multiplayer game. But whatever. Mobile game went to Honkai Star Rail.
I don't even know what that is. I have no idea. I don't play
It's
games.
Genshin Impact,
idea.
but it's turn based
Okay,
instead of being action, an action RPG.
Cool.
Best adaptation went to The Last of Us on HBO. I think that's pretty. I don't know.
I expected it, but I was still rooting for Mario.
You know,
I love Last of Us. Like it was so good, but like I don't know. I was kind of hoping it would be Mario.
Yeah, it's the same. I voted for Mario when I voted for this stuff. So, as much as like The Last of Us is incredible, The Last of Us is gonna go. This is gonna sound terrible after everything that we said about respecting the Game Awards and stuff. The Last of Us is gonna win a bunch of real awards. Like The Last of Us is gonna win Golden Globes and Emmys, right? So like to me, it's like, I don't think that Mario is going to win
No,
best
no.
animated feature. You know why? Because Wish is going to win, even though Wish is not a good movie by all accounts, but the Academy just votes for whatever the Disney movie is.
Hmm.
Like, that's all. They just vote for the Disney movie. So that's a whole other thing. Mutant Mayhem not being nominated for the Golden Globe for best animated feature. It's
Wait,
just
it's not
like
even nominated?
it's not even nominated. It's not even
That
nominated,
sucks.
dude. It's a travesty. Like that is offensive to me because it is not just one of the best animated movies of the year. In a year with some very good animated movies, I think Mutant Mayhem is one of the best movies of the year. For me, like Mutant Mayhem was fantastic. It so exceeded my expectations. Um, yeah. Ongoing game went to Cyberpunk 2077, which is awesome. That's great for Cyberpunk. Nice come from behind victory on that one. But that's the point of the ongoing game award is like, hey, this like they're continuing to improve this game and
Hmm.
they've built it up from a pretty shabby launch into what for all intents and purposes is a very solid game now. So yeah, but hey, that's par for the course for CD Project Red. That's kind of their whole deal. um Player's voice, which I guess is like the one that we all voted for, was
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate
Yeah.
3. And then Game of the Year goes to Baldur's Gate 3. Now there are awards missing from this list
Yeah,
because
because there was one I was waiting for you to weigh in on, very
yeah,
specific one.
I because best performance
Hmm.
went to the actor from Baldur's Gate 3, which like I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet because
Right.
it's too expensive. So like it's $100 for the base game in Canada. Like 92 something, and it's like I cannot afford to pay that much money for something that's going to distract me from working. um but I when it goes on sale, I'll buy
Yeah.
it. But um, yeah, I mean, like you and I think are both in the camp that Ben Starr
Yeah.
deserved acknowledgement for an amazing breakout performance in Final Fantasy 16 as Clive Rossfield. He like to me that game is only as strong as it is. Go listen to our Perfect 10 if you want to hear us talk at length about Final Fantasy 16. That game is only as strong as it is on the backs of the performances.
Hmm.
I think without that, the story is fine. It's a very good story. I like it. It's a Final Fantasy story. I think it does well enough. Um, but to me, it is um, the pathos and emotion that the actors put into it, Ben Starr first and foremost, that really makes it stand out in the Final Fantasy franchise to me. Um, and yeah, I feel like he deserved acknowledgement for that. I think that he deserved the win, especially as like Ben Starr coming out of nowhere, right? Like I'd never heard of him before, and then here he is, this character, and like he has skyrocketed to my favorite Final Fantasy protagonist. That's a big deal for me. So I look at it and go like, yeah, I think that he deserved it, but it is what it is. Everybody's in love with Baldur's Gate, which
Yeah.
makes me want to just be grumpy and hate it, but I'm sure
I
that they
mean,
have good
me
reason.
too, especially because I haven't played it either. So it's just
Mhm.
like, oh, Baldur's Gate win ever. This is stupid. But like, I'm sure it's great, and I'm sure I will like it because I like D&D. And before
Yeah.
the Game Awards, I already wanted to play it, but I'm in the same boat where I'm like, I'm gonna wait for a price drop. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy that Final Fantasy 16 at least was acknowledged for its score.
Mhm.
Um, that was pretty great. But yeah, this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. I wish there were not better categories, but just more. Like there was more focus on the award. Because like best supporting actors, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like there's just so many things that could be acknowledged and appreciated because it's not just a lead's performance. There's so many like actors that go into these games, and it's just like it sucks that it's 5 people for the year. Okay.
Well, I mean, let's use Jedi Survivor is a great example where it's like I don't necessarily think that that Cameron Monaghan deserves to win best performance, right? But if
Mhm.
there was a best actor, best actress, I do think that
Yeah.
Tina Ivlev
Yeah.
deserved deserved a win for her performance as Marin
Mm.
in Jedi Survivor because I
Yeah.
think that she crushed it
She was
in
awesome. Yeah.
that story. Like her performance is phenomenal. It's fantastic. I so yeah, I agree with you 100%. Having best actor, best actress, supporting actress, I think would be like it would be so great for the awards. I also think that like in a field like video games, um, there are performances that are different from like I would take the opportunity to acknowledge like best narration in a game,
Yeah.
right? Because there are a
Yeah.
lot of games that have incredible performances that the character is not an on-screen character,
Hmm.
right? Um, just because of the way that a game is structured, and I think that that's something that you could acknowledge as well, right? But
Hmm.
um, yeah, yeah, there's a whole performance and voice acting uh, aspect of things that's like having one award for all of that seems like a missed opportunity more than
Hmm.
anything. But yeah. Were there any
I
other
don't know.
awards that we've glossed over
There,
that weren't in this list? It
there
looked like a
was
comprehensive list, and then I
there
read
was a
through it and it's not.
racing one, right? But yeah, I don't really care
Yeah.
about racing. I kind of wish they did one on like puzzles, like best puzzle design, stuff like that. Because there are a lot of puzzle games other than Zelda. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that there's opportunity for them to expand this out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we were gonna do a tight hour, and we're now over an hour. So let's get into our games of the year really quick. Let me do mine because mine are gonna be real fast.
Okay.
I For me, it is wild. Spider-Man was totally snubbed yet again. The first one got snubbed. Miles
Yep.
Morales got snubbed, and
Hmm.
then this also got snubbed. Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is for me, I think, best story. Like if you want to give an award for best story, I would give it to Spider-Man 2. I think that they just absolutely knocked it out of the park with the story for that game. Again, go listen. We got a perfect 10 for that one as well. Um, we had to get creative during the strike, and so Joe and I talked about a lot of video games, but I even though that one technically came out after the strike, we didn't have to, but we were already committed. So, but yeah, Spider-Man 2 definitely deserves some sort of acknowledgement for the writing. I think, and then performances are also great, but I really think that it stands out in terms of writing, in terms of having like a very um, solid, concise, easy to follow, impactful storyline. Um, yeah, I and then yeah, like indie game slash RPG, I'd give to Sea of Stars hands down. I just think it was such an achievement with that game, with the team that they have, producing something that feels at once so familiar to like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI to that era, and yet like all of the modern sort of RPG conveniences that we would expect. Yeah, really kind of really pushes that genre forward, I think, in a great way, and with such a small team. I mean, like they won Indie Game of the Year for a reason. So, and then I will acknowledge Jedi Survivor is one of my favorite games of the year, but I don't think it quite hit the level that these other ones have. I Zelda, I don't know, best Zelda game of the year. I don't know, man. Like it's a Zelda game. It's like it was just more of Breath of the Wild, which is not even remotely a complaint, but it was also for me. Um, I'm ready for. I know that people kind of want a third, like they want it to be a trilogy, but I'm actually ready for Zelda to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And for I would really love to see a Zelda game get really tight with the narrative, and for Link to speak in the next game. That's super important to me. Um, I want a fully voice acted game that actually engages me with the story and isn't about the like go wander around, right? I love that. It's fantastic, um but I really want to see them take what they've learned from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and tell a really good story. Um, not that I didn't, shed a couple of tears while playing Tears of the Kingdom as well, but I let me see. What am I missing anything at this point? That's been a big game of the year. Fortnite at like right at the buzzer, coming in with Lego Fortnite and this festival and rocket racing and all this stuff that they've done to expand that platform. I I'm like, I just like, it's awesome. I love it. I want to go play that game right now. And by that game, I mean any of like regular Fortnite Battle Royale, Lego, any of it, but Lego Fortnite is so good. It makes me so happy that it exists as a thing. And I can't wait to see how they build on it, and pun intended on that one for sure. But yeah, it is just, it's a match made in heaven. For me as a fan of Lego and Star Wars and Marvel and DC and all of this, I was like, well, I can have these characters in a Lego game that is actually focused on building and exploration. Like, as a Minecraft fan, it's like, yeah, I am in. I am so sold on that. So that's my multiplayer game of the year. But my game of the year above all is Final Fantasy 16, because Final Fantasy 16 not only stands out as my favorite gaming experience of this year, it also stands out. It is my favorite Final Fantasy game, which, as I talk about a lot on Perfect 10, is a massive deal to me, because Final Fantasy 8 is a very important and special game to me, but 16, yeah, I can't believe that in all of the conversations that we've had about 16, I have not brought up the fact that 16 is my lucky number.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of Trevor Linden, whose number is 16, and 16 was the number that I wanted when I was playing hockey, but I had to settle for 17 because the coach's son wanted 16 because of Trevor
Mm.
Linden. Trevor Linden is my favorite hockey player. So like, since I was a kid, 16 is like, that's my number. And so Final Fantasy 16 being my favorite Final Fantasy game is like, I don't know how I didn't put it together sooner, but like, I literally only like 2 weeks ago was like, wait a second. And it was like like all of the things clicked into place. I was like, I played hours and hours and hours of this game and loved it, and didn't think about the fact that it is the 16th entry in a franchise that I love, and that 16 is my lucky number. But whatever. It is also, it occurred to me when it was pointed out to Ben Starr, because 8 is his favorite. He can't say 16 because he's in it. So 8 is his favorite Final Fantasy game. It's the first one that he played. Um, and that 16 is double 8. So, and I've said a ton that like 16 feels to me most like the spiritual sequel to 8, and Clive is a better version of Squall. Like, that's, to me, that character is just like,
Jeez.
he is like, you take Squall and then you go like, what can we do now with modern storytelling and sensibilities in gaming? And that's absolutely what you end up with. So um yeah, so like Final Fantasy 16 it came at a very important time for me. It was very, I talking about it and experiencing it and stuff like that is like stressful, rough point in my life, and has like left a mark on
Mhm.
me in a way that those other games that I've talked about, that as much as I love them and they're great games, they have not like left an indelible mark on my soul, which Final Fantasy 16 has. So, and there's nothing rational about that. It is not that it is the best game that came out this year. There was something in that game that connected with me on a level that goes beyond gaming, movies, media, whatever, that it is just like, oh, this was made for me. Like, this game was made for me. Yeah, it's difficult for me to actually put into words, as much as we have spent a lot of time this year talking about it. All of that time has been like me futilely grasping at the words to express how important the game has been. So yeah, that's been my year in gaming.
Nice. Full year.
Yeah.
No,
How
no,
about
no
you?
short games. Okay, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I will also be doing rapid fire, but I'm going to include, so I'm gonna shout out any game that I give a 9 or higher because I did score
Okay.
everything after I finished them out of 10, and they don't just like they're not games that just came out this year, but there's not too many that didn't come out this year. But one of them that I don't believe came out this year is called Poi. It is an indie game, and it is basically a tight little short collectathon, like kind of akin to Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64, all those types of games. POI, little sweet little indie game, really really fun. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Really really loved it. Let's see what else is a 9. Octopath Traveler 2. If you love Octopath Traveler, if you like all that old school Final Fantasy 6 Chrono Trigger type, um, turn-based combat, JRPGs. It's in 2.5D, visually really pleasing to me. So it looks like it's that 16-bit graphics, but with these like kind of like modern lighting effects and stuff like that. I love Octopath Traveler. It's one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. Octopath Traveler 2, while I don't think the narrative is as strong as the first one, I do think it does a lot better. It takes what the first game did and improves on a lot of those things. So that is my JRPG of the year. Um, no, rather my turn-based combat JRPG of the year. Okay, let's see. Jedi Survivor, obviously amazing. I don't remember if you touched on it at any point, but I'm pretty sure we did, other than talking about Marin. But I mean, everybody knows that we love Jedi Survivor. Final Fantasy 16, that's my favorite action JRPG of the year, no question there. Tinykin is my favorite indie game of the year. I don't know if you are familiar with Tinykin. It's basically Pikmin, but for platforming and puzzle solving. I could not put this game down. It was maybe 6 or 7 hours long for me, maybe a little bit longer than that. Dude, it was so good. It was so fun, and
Yeah.
it's very in the same similar vein as Pikmin. Is you're in this like you're this like tiny creature. You have these like little friends that help you out and do things, but like similar to Pikmin, how each Pikmin does a different thing. The Tinykin also do different things, and my favorite one were the Tinykins that you stack on top of each other, and you basically use them as a ladder. So now you're able to platform higher and get to higher places that you couldn't before. So much fun. I love collectathons, so this was like another like really awesome collectathon indie platformer surprise.
Does it have the stress of Pikmin where you're being
No,
like sort of
no,
graded and they can be killed by giant
no,
monsters and stuff?
and
No.
and that's why I love it. I don't think there are any. I'm pretty sure there were no enemies in that game. It was all about collecting
Okay.
and no time limit. It was like stress-free Pikmin. It was so fun and platforming.
Yeah.
So it was just like perfect because like that's the thing. Pikmin 4 is actually my favorite, like one of my I mean, really, one of the only ROTSs of the year that I played this year, other than Pikmin 1, 2, and 3, which I played for the first time this year. Um, but Pikmin 4 was amazing, and I love it. But, like, that stress of the time limit
Yeah. I
always
can't
freaks me out.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't play Pikmin
Yeah.
games for that reason.
Yeah.
I played the
It's
first Pikmin and I was like, this is a great game. I do not have fun playing this.
because
Yeah.
I had played through half of the first one, and then I was talking to Tina a little bit about it because Pikmin is one of her favorite Nintendo franchises.
Mhm.
So what we ended up doing is we did any of the Pikmin games that had co-op, we played the co-op together, and then anything that didn't, we would just kind of like trade off the controller. But what was cool about Pikmin 4 was It's a little bit more like Mario Galaxy, where player two is just kind of playing support. Like there's no real danger to player two. It's just player one is the person who is controlling the Pikmin and the Olimar type character.
Yeah.
And player two is kind of like the little annoying sibling. But I was happy to do that because I don't like the stress of Pikmin. So I was helping with the support stuff all through Pikmin 4, but I was also discussing with Tina's strategy. So for me, Pikmin 4 was probably the most fun I ever had playing a Pikmin game. So that's definitely up there for me. Spider-Man 2, we spoke about ad nauseum. Final Fantasy 16, we spoke at nauseum. I think the last one for me, my actual game of the year, no surprise, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Um, I agree with most people's assessment on that game where it's Breath of the Wild, but more. But I also think that I give this game a lot of kudos because Breath of the Wild was okay, you're in this world, here's some tools, figure it out. Right.
Mm.
So like I agree. Like I miss the structure of like the next dungeon and getting the next item and using that item through that dungeon and learning how to use that item efficiently through that dungeon and then mastering it by the time you finish the boss fight. Like I love that stuff. I love the linear Zelders. I call it Zelda with Tina to be obnoxious. I love the linear story focused Zeldas a lot. But something about this new format I just think feels um I don't want to say intuitive. It just feels like the natural progression for me.
Mm.
And what I love about Breath of the Wild is, and I've said this before, someone on Reddit had basically described Breath of the Wild as the tech demo, and then the actual putting everything in practice with Tears of the Kingdom. And I love that Tears of the Kingdom took everything from Breath of the Wild and they leaned into the aspect of the game where you can solve puzzles however you want. You can be as creative as you want, or you don't have to take the scenic route. You can just take the straight line and figure it out the serious quick way. You can do the silly fun way. You can do the I'm curious if this is going to work way. You can abuse the physics. And I
Mm.
love how the physics work in these games, especially Tears of the Kingdom. And I love that they just give you more to play with because in the first game it was a few of those. I think that were they runes in the first game. I forget what they were called. um all the
Yeah.
stuff that you were kind of given with the Sheikah slate off the bat. But then as you go on, you're unlocking different parts that you can put in your inventory and like build different things. And it it almost became the game that Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolt wanted to be.
Oh,
Like they
for
took
sure.
right, because I love Banjo Kazooie and I wanted to love Nuts and Bolts, but it just like didn't quite land for me. And I was worried when I saw the trailers for this game once I realized that there's going to be that very important aspect to it that you're going to have to build your way through solving puzzles. And I never thought it was going to click for me as well
Yeah.
as it did. And it just the whole time I just felt like Nintendo was
Yeah.
letting me be as creative as I wanted to be
I yeah.
to solve problems.
That's the difference there, right? Is that Nuts and Bolts had prescribed solutions
Hmm.
and you were trying to get as close as possible. In theory I love builder games, right?
Hmm.
Like Bridge Constructor, right? Um but then whenever I'm playing them, I get so frustrated because it's always like, well, you guys have built the physics engine in a way that is so strict that there's only one actual solution to this. Now, like, I can over engineer a solution and maybe eke through this level,
Hmm.
but you actually want me to do a specific thing. And if you're going to give me a physics playground, don't do that,
Yeah.
right? Give me a
Yeah.
physics playground and let me
Yeah.
play, right? And that's what Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild both managed to do so well.
Yeah. For sure.
Is that like they just went like, here, look, these are the tools, and yeah, some of these have very specific solutions to them, but for the most part, especially Tears of the Kingdom, it's like, listen, this whole like underground subterranean area, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Figure it
Figure
out.
it out, idiot.
And so like, yeah, like exploring that, to me, I think was my highlight of that game. Was exploring the underground, because it was just like, what's the best way what are the best ways for me to get across this? But then just seeing the incredible ingenuity that people had, the people building like
Yeah.
Gundams, and like, I mean, it was wild at the peak of that game
Yeah.
on TikTok, seeing what people were doing.
That
Yeah,
was a big part of it too, right? Like being kind of like being on the ground floor for this like weird phenomenon that was going
yeah,
on and just like really appreciating what people were doing. But you know, to your point about classic linear story driven Zelda, I think that there's no reason that we shouldn't be getting both. And I don't mean for a mainline Zelda. I mean like let the big Zelda team do the really, really big, crazy open world stuff. And
yeah,
like, there's always been a second Zelda team, right? And not even
yeah,
just Grezzo handling a lot of the ports. Like when Wii U and Wii and Switch were doing the mainline Zeldas, there were the smaller teams working on the 3DS Zeldas that were like
yeah,
really good. Like Link Between Worlds is an amazing linear, well, kind of linear game. But you know what I mean? Like, there's no
yep,
reason we shouldn't be getting like our giant Zelda games and our tighter focused Zelda games. Just like how we're getting, we get Mario Odyssey, but we also get Mario Wonder. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they're two
totally,
separate teams working on two different
totally.
things. There's no reason we shouldn't be getting both.
Yeah. I think what I'd like to see from Zelda is a little bit more like of a continuity, like in the way that
Mm,
we got with like Wind Waker to Phantom Hourglass to Spirit Tracks. There was a little
yeah.
bit of like a through line there, and
Mm,
obviously Ocarina and Majora's Mask, right? There's stuff there. So like, yeah, I would love to see what you're talking about was like I don't know why we're not seeing more sprite based. I feel the same way about Pokemon, where it's like they keep making these Pokemon games bigger and harder to manage from a development standpoint. Um, and especially on the hardware that they're working with, it's like I really don't feel like Scarlet and Violet were fantastic games. I loved the hell out of those games. Like I played so much of Scarlet. I one of my favorite games last year for sure. But it didn't it's you're not utilizing the hardware to the best of its
yeah.
capability. And
Sure.
I saw a picture of a guy, it's just like something on Instagram or whatever, like this ancient picture of somebody, like there's their wife is in the background out of focus, clearly in labor giving birth, with like this upset look on her face looking at the person taking the picture, and he's holding up his Game Boy Advance Micro with one of the Pokemon games on it, right? One of the Game Boy Advance Pokemon games. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that little tiny screen, that little tiny device, and that game still like visually sings, because those little sprites like that, just like there's an art to it. And I think Sea of Stars really like kind of pointed this out
Yeah.
this year of
Yeah.
like, and games like Octopath Traveler, although they're doing something slightly different. But like Sea of Stars really made the case for like, why are you guys not just making 2D Zelda games? Just make sprite
Yeah.
based 2D Zelda games. It it would be so much easier to just build one engine and just stick with that engine. It's like Link's Awakening and I what was the other one, because they did, it was like Link's Awakening is like a completely new aesthetic, and they had just done something else before that, where another remake. No, maybe I'm just thinking because I love Link Between Worlds so much, and it's like I don't understand why we don't just run that aesthetic. Like why
Yeah.
can't we just stick with this? Why do we need to now make them look like toys or whatever? It's like, and
Yeah.
Link's Awakening on the Switch is a beautiful game and I love it, um but yeah, like I don't know, I just look at it and I go like, can we not just like, I kind of miss like when they gave it to Capcom and Capcom made the Oracle of
Oh
Seasons and
man,
Oracle of
those games
Ages,
are awesome.
which are both so good.
Yeah,
Like do something
they're
like
wonderful.
that, right? Like let some other dev make a bunch of Zelda games in the formula, because like the formula is so like, that's all like I don't, it actually doesn't need to be revolutionary every time. You
Right,
don't need to change it up on me every time.
right.
I would love for the formula to stay consistent and for the story to be the focus, to really have like a almost like an episodic Zelda sort of thing going on. And then you're right, like you can also then have like the big every 4 to 10 years uh open world gigantic, we're going to do crazy new things
Yeah,
with the
for
Zelda
sure.
franchise installment. Like you're right, we can have both things. There's no reason why we can't. But
Especially
yeah,
because there were teams. Like they had teams
yeah,
designated for both. Like
yeah,
it's weird. It's weird that we're not getting that anymore. Just because 3DS is gone. Like
yeah.
what are those
it
guys doing then?
it's the fact that everything is Switch now, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, so we see games come out that it's like, well, clearly Link's Awakening was like a handheld idea,
But
and
that was
then
Grezzo though, wasn't it? Like wasn't that cuz like that's a third party studio that has been working on
was it okay?
ports. Yeah, because Ocarina of Time 3D, uh Majora's Mask 3D, Link's Awakening, I'm pretty sure they did. But then didn't they also do they did another Zelda. I don't think they did Skyward Sword HD. But I feel like they did one other Zelda. Maybe it was a Triforce Heroes
Hmm.
on 3DS. I don't know. I'm not sure. But like those are their hey, just do the remakes team
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
work on the new games. Like there were 3 Zelda teams, including Grezzo. So what's everybody doing right now? Other than the main Zelda team. I don't know. I'm certainly not complaining because I'm just excited for more Zelda. I just want more Zelda.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Cool. Was that the end of your list?
Yeah, that was it. That was I saved it for
Okay,
last.
cool. Awesome. Well, that's it then. I yeah, I told you that we would do an hour, and it's been an hour and a half.
That's
So
okay. We're fine.
we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoy this new format, the return of the Thunderquack podcast. In January, I don't know what it's gonna be yet. I have to man, it's so tough because like our anniversary of when we launched Thunderquack and launched the Patreon is like the first week of January, which is also Crystal's birthday and hot on the heels of Christmas and New Year's. So, um, as much as I would love to do what I want to do for the anniversary of Thunderquack, because it'll be 8 or 9 years. I can't remember. I have to look at it. But um in either late January or early February, we are gonna do something basically like a pledge drive type thing. And yeah, so stay tuned for something with that. When, like, I obviously follow us on social media, follow us in all the places. You can now go and you can actually like follow a Patreon without subscribing to it. If so, for people who don't know that, so you can go do that and actually like use the Patreon app to get this podcast as well as Perfect 10 and Force Perspectives. But I think what I want to do is like a sort of all day live podcast stream where we we'll have like everybody from all of the different shows, like everybody will sort of have a shift. And we're just going to podcast for like, I don't know, like 10 or 12 hours straight or something like that. And we'll have some goals and stuff like that, where if we can get people pledging on Patreon to get to a certain point, and we'll have like bonus episodes that we'll record and stuff like that. Stretch goals basically. So look forward to news about that. Um, Coming probably by the end of this month, but if not, like the first couple of weeks of January, I'll let everybody know what that's going to be and when that's going to be. It's just a matter of coordinating with everybody in Thunderquack, which is not as easy as it sounds. Even though we're not that big of a network, the problem is that we're all over the place and we all have different levels of commitment to podcasting. So, um, I but yeah, and I mean, like, there's a big question of one of our shows, the Riverdale gang. Riverdale's done, and I haven't talked to Ryan and Chloe about whether or not they're doing anything else. So I stuff like that. But yeah, we'll have something to announce for that. Probably probably figure out something to announce like around Christmas Day, sort of thing. But sometime between Christmas and New Year's, I think I'll have a better idea of what that's going to be and what that's going to look like. So stay tuned for that. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining us for this one. Thank you for coming back. For those of you who, if you're still subscribed to this feed after the basically year and a half of no podcasts on it, thanks for sticking around. Welcome back. We've been doing lots of stuff in the meantime, just not the Thunderquack podcast. So go check out Force Perspectives. Go check out Rebel Cells. And if you haven't, Perfect 10. It has some great episodes of some really cool stuff, and we got some good stuff planned for the next little bit. Our Christmas episode coming out later this month is going to be Batman Returns with me and Danielle. So look forward to that one. That one will be out on Christmas Day, and as a Christmas gift to everybody, it's going out early for everyone, not just for Patreon supporters, but for everybody on Christmas Day itself. So look forward to that. We've already recorded it, so I won't miss the date.
Perfect.
We won't be scrambling at the last second. But yeah, that's it. I'll be back next week with an episode of Off the Record, which is the exclusive Thunderquack podcast over on Patreon. And I'll be talking in depth about Godzilla. I'll do full spoiler review of -1, and I'll talk about the MonsterVerse stuff, including Monarch and yeah, I'm gonna get deep into my Godzilla feelings on that one. So if that sounds like fun, head over to patreon.com/thunderquack and support us there. And you'll be able to get access to that exclusive podcast only available there. Awesome. And you can get this podcast early by subscribing on Patreon. That is it for this month's Thunderquack podcast episode. Thank you, Joe, for joining me, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Bye, guys.